Hey guys, how you doing? I didn't really promote this one other than just popping it up and see who's paying attention might get the notifications. So we're going to do a quick little workout or go over some exercises, not so much a workout, but I want to go over some exercises. If you are a hiker or a runner, and living up here in Vermont, seeing a lot of people getting outside and walking because of we're just confined right now, and so we're trying to get out and do some healthy stuff and get a walk in. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go over some basic exercises that I think everybody should be considering to help you make sure that you're staying healthy with all the walking we're doing, and potentially those of us that are getting ready to do some hiking or running. So I'm going to go over some mobility through the ankle. I'm going to go over targeting your inner core muscles, and I'll talk about that in an anatomy book. And I'm also going to talk about a specific muscle, your glute medius. Now, for hikers and runners, obviously you want to be focusing on other muscle groups as well. And try and cover all that in a short little live stream is a disservice to you. So I'm going to go over the meat and potatoes of some stuff that you can consider. So I'm going to grab this anatomy book, and the first thing we're going to just talk about and go over real quickly are the muscles I want to target once we get going, and I'll show you the exercises. But we want to talk about our core musculature, and not so much that vanity muscle we see in the magazines with the six-pack. Looks really pretty, but we want to talk about the muscles that are deep on your spine. I don't know if you can see that right there. This is your multifidi, and those muscles, they run down your spinal column, and those muscles are your inner core, and we need them to respond reflexively to what's going on and give you that good stability so that the rest of the muscles in your core and your body are free to do the job that they need to do. The other thing we want to focus on is your glute medius, this muscle right here. So typically we're accustomed to thinking about our glute max, which is a bigger glute muscle. So we actually have three glutes. We have the glute max, it's a major extensor, and then we have the glute medius. It's an abductor external rotator in the hip, and then we have the glute minimus. It's an abductor internal rotator in the hip. Now, the glute medius is an interesting muscle because it does a couple of things throughout the gait process. The first thing it's doing is it's making sure that the pelvis is level at that point in time when we're in a single leg stance throughout that swing phase, if you will, of the gait. And so that helps keep the pelvis from dipping. And you can see people that have troubles with that muscle if they didn't do their rehab correctly, if they had hip replacement or an injury, you'll see them kind of drop their hip a little bit and call it the Trendelenburg. The second thing that the glute medius does, which we tend to lose focus of, and that's that it controls the internal rotation in the femur during our plant when we hit the ground, when our foot hits the ground in response to ground reaction forces. So there's a natural bit of pronation that occurs that's initiated at the heel strike with the calcaneus going into inversion and eversion, and then it translates into internal rotation through the tibia up to the femur, and the glute medius is supposed to hopefully decelerate eccentrically that rotation or even control it for that matter. So what we want to do is we want to do some exercises that are going to free the ankle up. The first exercise I'm going to show you guys is really simple. If you take a pole or a stick and you place the pole at a minimum of 4 fingers out in front of your big toe. And then what we want to do is have you rock your knee. I actually like to go either side of the pole. Some courses I've taken, they'll focus on just rocking towards the inside, getting the outer part of the knee to go towards the inside of the pole, making sure you keep the heel on the ground. I like to go in both directions and also check to make sure that with my heel on the ground, I can get my knee to that pole. Now, if you have a shoe that's elevating your heel, that's a little bit of a cheat. So you may want to do this in a flat-soled shoe or without any shoes on at all. And so for me, I'm going to squeak this out a little further and just challenge my mobility. I can tell you firsthand, I have very tight calf muscles from knee surgeries and just general activities I've done in my past. So that's the first thing you want to do. So we want to have good ankle mobility here so that we have some mobility up here And that allows us to also make sure that our hip is free to move and do the job that it needs to do through the glute medius. If you have a stiff ankle, it's going to tend to make the knee not function correctly, and you actually won't make those muscles work in the butt. You're going to end up using your TFL and your hip flexors. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is you want to consider getting to our core. And there's a couple of different ways I like to make the core turn on reflexively. So in the beginning, when I was showing you the anatomy book, I talked about your core needs to turn on instantaneously in response to what's going on. So for example, if you're walking on the ice and you slip, you don't go through a thought process of, oh, I gotta turn this muscle on, turn that muscle on. Everything happens instantaneously. So we want to create an environment, if you will, that encourages that to occur on its own. So the exercise is creating that response versus having the coach or the physio say to you, think this, when you step, think that. That's not really going to serve you. You want to be doing an exercise that's forcing your body to have that occur in a natural manner. Create the environment that fosters the correction, if you will. So a sensory-rich environment is the term that's used. All right, so what I'd like to do is I'll take an elastic band and I can fix it to the doorway. I'm just going to pick this up here just so you can see me, but you want to be able to see my feet. So I'll have the band fixed to a doorway or to an object at the wall, and I'm going to be stacked. Okay? What I do is I take my leg that's on the inside of that wall, and I'll place it out in front. And it might be heel toe, or it might be just off the side a little bit, but I want to have a narrow stance. And again, I want the leg that's out in front, or excuse me, the leg that's to the closest to the anchor point out in front here. I hold the band out in front of my body, and I push out and back. And when I push out, all of a sudden, these rotational forces that are occurring as my arms push out start to have my abdominals turn on. So we want to experience it as an increased abdominal involvement when I push out, and I pull that back in. Increased abdominal involvement, and pull back in. You might even start to feel that glute working because, again, your body's experiencing these rotational forces that it needs to negotiate, which is exactly what's going on when you're hiking or running. And I'll make sure I do it in the other direction. So I'll turn, I'll face this way, sit myself up, and do the same thing. Now, if you're fortunate enough where you have a TRX, this is basically nothing more than the resisted rotation that we do in the TRX classes if you have been fortunate enough to do any of those. So I'll bring this up this way here. So to get yourself set up again, you're going to be sideways to the anchor point. You want the leg that's on the inside, out in front, heel toe stance, and you want to make sure that the hands are holding the handles, the outer handle, and it's at midline on your sternum. And you're going to push out and back. And same process, push out, you should feel the core kick in and pull back. I know that some of the mistakes people make when they do this exercise, and I'm constantly correcting this, is they try to create too much of a lean. They think the more lean, the more they're going to get. And the reality of it is probably less lean. The more subtle adjustments you make, the more subtle the lean, and your body will start to experience more benefit from that, as opposed to creating this really big force vector or angle, and all of a sudden all the wrong muscles start to get involved. So we've done a couple of things now. We got your ankle primed. Hopefully that ankle mobility is doing pretty good. And we got your core working. And then we go right in, and I'll just show you an exercise to help get the glutes working. Now, by no means do you just pull forward here. I mean, you may have to foam roll your quads. You might need to do some other things as well. But again, just trying to give you a little taste of some things you should be thinking about. So I'll use a kettlebell, big surprise. You can use a dumbbell. You can take a bucket and throw some dirt or some sand in the bucket. Put a weight in the bucket if you want to use that. Anything will work well. All we want to do is have something on the opposing side of the body that we're going to stand. So it's a single leg deadlift. And what I'll do, I don't know how well you can see here, I'm going to hold the kettlebell on my right side as I stand on my left leg. And I'm going to activate my left arm as well. My left arm is not lazy, so I'm going to make a fist. I'm going to squeeze that arm in. I'm going to lift my unweighted leg back and stand up. After I get a couple of reps of these in, you should start to feel that glute and the hamstring working. Now, some of the things I've observed are people like to go through a really big range of motion. They like to go all the way down to the ground. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great to do. But you're just starting to work your back, and I think you're missing out on giving an opportunity for the glute to get engaged. So it's good to work a full range of motion. But right now, we're just trying to get that glute working. So simply lifting the leg back and then stand up. Now, if you're having a hard time holding your balance on one side versus the other, there's a trick to that, and you can use the resisted rotations to help prime that side. If you do experience that, send me a message or email me. You can get through to me at Anil@mindmovecoach.com, right on the website. Touch base with me, and I'll go over some of the things you want to consider with that. So then I'll go on the other side. I get the other side working. And you can see here, I get a soft knee on the leg that I'm standing on. I keep that back leg straight, and I stand back up. Again, I want to make sure that I feel the glute get engaged before I move on, because hiking and running is what? It's a quad dominant activity. We use most of our quads as propelling us. What we're trying to do here is get the stabilizers in our hip to work so we have good femoral alignment. And then on top of it, we want the glute max, that big butt muscle, to help with the extension so the quads aren't doing all the work. You'll have improved work capacity, you'll have better improved, let's try that again, Emil. You'll have better endurance and lasting power out on the trail as well with your run. Now, what I do here is next, is use a band and use a little box. I don't know how well you're going to see it. I'll try and set this up so you can see it here. But the reason I said I want you to feel your your glute kick in first, because we are going to go to an exercise that does make use of the quad. And so what we're hoping to do here is train those muscles to share the responsibility. So I want not just the quad to do everything, but I want the glute to get engaged. So what I might do in the beginning, just so I can get familiar or get my body familiar with the exercise, is I'll hold a pole, and you can see here, I can angle this down, and here's a box. There's the box. Okay. So what I'm going to do is stand up on the box, hold this leg out, and all I'm going to do, the pole's here to help if I need it, let my knee travel forward and get the heel to the ground. Now there's a couple of things that are occurring. Do you remember the first exercise we did? I talked about good ankle mobility. You need good ankle mobility. So now that knee's free to travel forward, and if the knee is traveling forward freely, it's not fighting the decreased ankle mobility, then the hip can start to get involved and do some work. So now we want to encourage that hip and quad to do some work through this little exercise. Now, if you're feeling like you want a little bit more, what I'll have you do is take a band, place the band around the foot, both feet actually, and I don't go too far down, because the farther down you go, the increased resistance, you're just increasing the resistance arm through the hip, having to make it work a little harder. So I'm going to go on the other side now. So what I'll have now is I'm going to hold this leg out, and I'm going to come down. Now there's a couple of things that are going to occur. Now it's going through the shin bone, but it's going to want that knee to collapse inwards, right? Now we talked about not wanting to think about that. You shouldn't have to be cued for that, but your body should make that subtle correction into itself. So the nervous system senses this mistake and hopefully helps to fight it a little bit. And I can tell you, I am starting to feel my glute work right away. So again, you want good ankle mobility. Free up the knee so the knee can be mobile, but we want the knee to also be safe. Free up that hip, because we also want good hip stability as well. Greg Cook had talked a little bit about mapping out and improving global function, and that was a good little live feed that he had done earlier last week. So there you go, in a nutshell, quick review for you guys. Think about your ankle mobility, do some ankle rocks. And the next thing you want to do is think about doing some exercises to liven up that core. You could do that exercise I showed you with the band. You can do the exercise with the TRX. Bird dogs are a good exercise. Half kneeling halos. Make sure you set your half kneeling up well. And then bird dogs, another great exercise to do. get that core primed, go ahead and hit some single leg deadlifts. It's a good exercise to do, or you could do some single leg lunges as well. But make sure it's more of a hinge, so you're getting the glute posterior chain working, and then you go in and start hitting the quads. Then what you want to do actually is create a superset. And again, that can get a little bit detailed, so I'm not going to try and cover all that in this video here. So again, if you have any questions and you're looking for a little program to get yourself set up for a successful hiking season, or you find yourself, you're out walking right now and you're getting a little sore, and maybe feeling some things you haven't quite felt before, you do want to give some attention to that now, because what feels like a little something now could be a bigger issue down the line. We want to help you with that. All right, thanks for checking in, and stay tuned for other videos, and we'll see you guys later.